Hi, everyone. It's Lora Haines here with JB Training Solutions, and I am so excited to share with you a sneak peek of one of our most popular workshops of all time, Commanding the Room. How can we make sure when we are delivering a meeting, we command the room? We have people actually listening to us. We have people that are actually engaged and saying, hey, wait a minute, I want to hear what they have to say. How can we make sure when we are in our presentations, whether it is that weekly status report meeting or it's something brand new and we're trying to be persuasive and we really need someone to hear us, we are heard? And how can we make sure, even if we're in front of a giant room and it feels more like a keynote, we have command of that space? In this very exciting workshop, it can be done in person and on site. It can be done virtually. What we have done is we've looked at what are some of the most critical elements to make sure every time you are presenting that you are commanding the room, and we have built them into this content. It is very hands-on, it is very fun, and I cannot wait to show you a sneak peek. But to start, here's my question for you. What is the average person's number one fear? Now, if we know that this is a public speaking workshop, if you're guessing public speaking, you're correct. 41%, in fact, have said this is my biggest fear, bigger than anything else. Heights, scary clowns, shark attacks. But here's where it gets interesting. 19% have said death. Now, if I'm looking at the math right, what this tells me is that twice as many people would literally rather be dead than delivering the eulogy. When it comes to public speaking, if you're anything like me, you can relate to this quote from Mark Twain. It says this, there's two types of speakers in the world, those that are nervous and those that are liars. Now, we're not always nervous. This doesn't mean every time we're in front of a room, there's nerves, but sometimes they show up, don't they? This is what it feels like for me. Maybe you can relate. I'll try to speak, and it's suddenly like my breath is just going. I'll feel a little shaky. It almost feels like there's like a light in front of me and I'm trying to get the words out, but it's suddenly hard to breathe and I'm not even sure what to do. Can you relate to any of this? When it comes to public speaking, without fail, everyone in the room will say there's been a time where, yep, I've had those feelings. And we're supposed to, it's adrenaline. In fact, I would argue that one of the biggest reasons that public speaking is such a common fear is because it's uncomfortable. Our body is saying, hey, there's a lot of stimulus. There's a lot of rooms. There's a lot of eyes on me. There's a lot of energy I'm either getting because I'm in the room or I am not getting because it's virtual and I want it and I feel like I'm not talking to anyone. And both of them create adrenaline. It's our body's way of saying, I'm not sure about this experience. The key to commanding a room is acknowledging, okay, yes, I'm experiencing these sensations. What am I going to do about it? And a lot of this course covers how can we make sure every time you are presenting, you are set up for success. Can you imagine if a couple of years ago in 2020, an email went out at your organization that said, we've looked at the data. We understand that we are most effective when it comes to public speaking. When we're in a room, we get the full experience. We understand how easy multitasking can be. We know if it's virtual, we can't guarantee you're actually watching the screen. So we're going to cancel all meetings moving forward. What do you think? Every meeting moving forward has been canceled. It's just too hard to make sure that we're commanding the space effectively. There's no way it would ever happen. In fact, when it comes to public speaking, it is one of the most critical skill sets anyone can master in their career. Getting individuals in a room, talking about content and bringing it to life is still our absolute best way of ensuring that we can share that background information. Sure, we can send a brief, we can add an attachment, but when we're in a room and we're bringing information to life, that's how we make it clear. Here's what we've done. Here's all the work that went into it. Here's why this matters. This is how we get to be persuasive. We get to plant those seeds. We get to get someone excited, engaged in the information. And why we get to spearhead any questions, comments, concerns, and make sure people leave saying, this is a great idea, I'm on board. It's easier said than done though. And that's why in this course, every time, whether you book this for a full day session, a half day, or a keynote, we're going to cover the words. Words are critical. What you have on your screen and how you choose to share it can make or break your presentation. Can I share something crazy with you? We go into this in detail during the live course, but for the sake of this demo, on average, in a 1-hour presentation, we tend to remember about 7% of the words. Don't believe me? I want you to think about a meeting you were in last week. Last week, what do you remember? There's a good chance you remember how the meeting made you feel. Maybe not necessarily everything that was shared in it, but do you remember, did you leave the meeting stressed out because now you have more work to do? Excited because we're all on the same page. How can we make sure the words that we're sharing has weight? That we are making sure when it's our space, what we need to have shared, what we need to have remembered will stand out. How do we work with the words to set us up for success? In this course, we also look at body language. Body language when you're in a room and you're in front of people. Body language if it's virtual, if you're on a virtual screen. How can we replicate body language to the best of our ability? And finally, we look at your voice. How can we make sure we are speaking in a voice that is compelling, easy to understand, and is your best possible speaking voice? Did you know tone of voice is 38% of what we tend to remember? Don't believe me? I'm so excited to be here today. It's going to be a really great and dynamic session. I hope you're ready to have a really good time. Let's get this party started. This course covers all of it and more. So I want to give you a sneak peek when it comes to working with the words. There's actually a magic number for the amount of words that will set you up for success whenever you are presenting information. There's a magic number of words that your screen should have. If you have less, even better. 20. 20 is your sweet spot. But how often do we find ourselves in rooms that look more like this? Now, every time we share this course, I say, yeah, this looks extreme, but who's ever been in a room where this is what it looks like? And without fail, hands go up. So here's the problem with this. As a facilitator, I've only got a couple options here. I could read it to you, but if you know how to read, that could have just been an email. I can paraphrase it. And in fact, that's what normally happens. So right now here on this call, let's just do a quick experiment. I'm going to attempt to paraphrase. And as I'm paraphrasing, and I am going to use all of the best techniques I can think of. I'm a Disney Institute trained facilitator. So here we go. I'm going to bring all the techniques Disney gave. The second you start to read ahead, let me know. So we're here today to talk about a brainstorm session. This is a critical part of that creative brief. When it comes to that brainstorm session, I know what you're thinking. Who do we make sure is in the room? Well, ideally, okay, did I lose you? There's a good chance I did. And in fact, when we do this session live, that's what tends to happen. And here's why. Anytime we have too much information on the screen, we are literally creating a traffic jam. We are forcing our participants to say, listen to me or read ahead, but we can't do both at the same time. There's actually one more reason why though. When we have way too much on our screen at once, it makes it really, really hard to engage. Have you ever been in a room where you have a really challenging attendee? Maybe it's that individual that interrupts, that takes over, that says, nope, I want to talk about this right now. In fact, let's take a look at this example. Do you see that second from the bottom, PERT.com homepage? It's appearing to melt. What if that bullet point just ruined your week? What if you're in this meeting, you've just skimmed, and that's all you can focus on? Are you even listening when I'm trying to share at the beginning? No. In fact, there's a good chance you might interrupt. You might say, wait, I have to talk about this right now. When it comes to working with the words and commanding the room, it's not just what we say, it's when we choose to share it. In fact, you are much better off sharing a little bit of information, bringing that content to life, using your natural speaking voice, checking in for questions, and then sharing more. Anyone know what my second goal is? You probably don't. It's really hard to check out if we don't know what's coming next. It's really hard to click on the next screen. It's really hard to start multitasking when we haven't even shared the information. When it comes to working with the words, it is critical that we take some time to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success. We're going to look at a lot of different ways that decks can either set us up for success or not. Look familiar? There's a good chance at some point in your career you've been in a room that looks like this. Now, there's a lot here we can unpack, and in the full workshop we might. But a couple key things I want to focus on is if we know that 20 words or less is our sweet spot, and that revealing less is more, what we're going to introduce are techniques to say, hey, if it's a PDF and you can't change it, here's what you do. If you have it in a PowerPoint and you don't have time to change anything in 5 seconds or less, here's how you make it easier to present and engage. And finally, if you have time to find the story, here's how you could bring storytelling techniques to life. We're also going to talk about graphs. We're going to talk about anytime you're showing content-heavy visuals, how can you make sure that the way you're revealing that information, you have your audience literally in the palm of your hands, that you are truly working with the words to command the room. I love this course. I get so excited about it, but we're just getting started. Once we share in some very big detail, tons of examples about different ways you can work with the words, you can set up your presentation for success, we're going to go into body language. Body language is a huge, huge part of how we command a room. It's a whole different animal though. If you are in a small conference room, how can you make sure when you're sitting at a table with 6 to 7 individuals, you're commanding it? Where do you sit? What should that look like? Do you sit? Do you stand? Did you lean in? We're going to talk about if you are in a room and you're presenting standing up to 10 and 20 peers. What should your posture look like? When should you move? How should you move? How do you choose your space in the screen? We're going to talk about if you're virtual. How can you make sure you're setting up your virtual platform for success? When it comes to body language, we are going to talk about what do we do with eye contact in a room? What does good eye contact look like? On a computer, what does it look like? This is what it would look like for me if I was reading my PowerPoint from my desktop. This is what it would look like if I was reading this presentation from the screen. It's not the same, is it? Good eye contact can be replicated in every single setting once we have the tips and techniques. One thing we're going to focus on when it comes to body language is our hands. Now, we understand that when it comes to body language, when we use our hands, it can really make a difference, but it's easier said than done. We are going to talk through some of my absolute favorite techniques, how we can hold our hand, how we can remember some very quick, simple tips and tools. We're even going to talk about the nuances and differences, whether you're in the room or you are virtual. Right now, I am working with my hands, but look at how high I'm holding them. You would never know. But if I was talking normally with my hands, you'd never see them. How can we make sure no matter what platform we're in, we're engaging with our full body language? And finally, we talk about that all-important voice. When it comes to commanding a room, we've got to bring the right voice to the table. You know, I've been a public speaking professional for my entire career. This is over 16 years now. And here's what I find really interesting. It is not uncommon if I'm doing any one-on-one public speaking coaching I'll talk to someone and I'll say, hey, what are you working on? And they'll tell me, and it's so interesting. And they bring the content to life. And I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. And then they get up on the screen and it's more like, hello, I am here today to talk about this presentation. You ever seen that happen? Nerves take over. We get nervous. We want to make sure we're showing up with the right tone. And in fact, it works against us for commanding the room. That's what this last section is all about. We'll look at what are some of the biggest ways we can get derailed. How do we handle those tricky questions when they come at us? What do we do? How do we choose to deal with them? Dismiss them, delay them, talk about them in the moment. Get some help from our peers and our colleagues in the room. How do we make sure when we have that individual in the room that just seems set on interrupting, that we can work with them in a way that shows, hey, I'm glad you're here. I'm really glad you're interested, but this is my content. And we are going to look at ways to make sure that even when we don't know the answer, we can confidently say that without letting all of our credibility and most importantly, confidence go away. Throughout this entire course, we have lots of really, really fun hands-on activities. You're going to practice eye contact. You're going to practice body language. You are going to practice what it looks like to work with different tones of voice and pace. We're going to play games like this right here, the zero-on game, where you get to figure out not only what your filler is, but then what do we do about it? How can we make sure we leave this workshop saying, hey, I didn't even know this. Turns out my filler is like, and now I know what to do with it. You will leave this course with the tools and the information to know any room you're in, you are able to engage the room, command the space with your best possible presentation skills. My favorite part is that good presentation skills can be applied anywhere. Whether you are finding that most of the rooms you're in are around a table, this course is for you. If a lot of the work you're doing is those spontaneous phone calls, this course is for you. And if a lot of your time is spent in these Zoom video chats, this course is for you. I hope to see you one day and share this commanding the room content with your organization. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I'm Lora Haines with JB Training Solutions, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.